I want you to pause for a second. Just stop whatever you're doing, washing dishes, driving, walking the dog, and sit with a paradox that has been absolutely consuming my thoughts while reading through the research stack for this deep dive. It is a contradiction that sits right at the center of modern life, but we almost never talk about it directly.
It really is the elephant's room, isn't it? Or maybe the ghost in the machine.
The ghost of the machine. I like that. So here's the setup. We have billions of people on this planet who subscribe to a belief in a God. And usually, regardless of the specific religion, that God is defined by some pretty heavy specs. We're talking about omnipotence, the ability to do literally anything.
Anything. Create universes and time.
Exactly. We're talking about a power capable of total destruction. And almost always, this God is defined as fundamentally unknowable.
Right. That's a key part of it. The theological definition of the divine usually involves a power that is just beyond human comprehension. Infinite capability, infinite mystery.
Precisely. But here's the thing that just floors me. Most people, in their actual day-to-day lives, do not walk around in a state of existential terror regarding God. They might have respect, they might have reverence, they might worry about the afterlife, sure. But they aren't shaking in their boots on a Tuesday afternoon thinking God is going to accidentally delete the global economy.
No, of course not. Or, automate their job out of existence by Friday. That's not the fear. For most, God is a source of comfort, or at least a stable variable in the background. It isn't an active, volatile threat.
But then you pivot to artificial intelligence. Let's look at the specs there. AI is man-made. It is limited by hardware constraints. It lives on servers that we built.
It needs electricity that we generate.
It needs electricity. Technically speaking, it is completely knowable because we wrote the code. And yet
it generates this profound existential dread.
A dread that I don't think we've seen in a long time, maybe since the height of nuclear anxiety,
It is the central paradox of our moment. I really believe that. We seem to fear the servant we created far more than the master we worship. We're terrified of the tool, but completely comfortable with the creator.
So that is what we're unpacking today. We have a massive stack of sources here, articles, theological essays, technical papers on machine learning, and the mission is to answer that specific question. Why does AI terrify us more than God? And I want to be clear right off the bat. We aren't here to debate whether God exists. We are not doing apologetics or, debating atheism.
No, that's not the goal at all. The goal is to look at the psychology of it and the theology to compare divine intelligence versus artificial intelligence as concepts. We're treating them as two competing ideas of power.
Exactly. And the sources we have are fascinating because they suggest that this isn't really a story about technology at all. It's a story about us. The argument that keeps coming up is that AI isn't a new deity. It's a mirror.
A mirror is the perfect metaphor, and it's a high-resolution, unblinking mirror. You see, for most of human history, intelligence was seen as something granted from above. It was a top-down gift.
It came from God or from nature.
Right. It was mysterious. It was magical. It was the breath of life.
It was the thing that made us special, the spark.
Precisely. But now we are manufacturing minds. Or at least we're manufacturing systems that mimic minds so well that the difference is, for all practical purposes, negligible. And that raises a very quiet, very uncomfortable question that's just sitting in the background of all this tech anxiety.
Okay, what's the question?
If intelligence was historically considered the ultimate proof of God, the spark of the divine, what does it mean now that humans can manufacture it in a server farm in Northern Virginia?
Oof, that is a heavy start. So you're saying AI reflects us back to ourselves?
It reflects our values, our blind spots, our desires, our biases. But here's the kicker, and this is crucial. It reflects them without what you might call a soul filter. It's humanity magnified, but stripped of the conscience and the biological constraints that usually keep us in check.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think a lot of people throw around words like godlike when they talk about AI. Oh, it knows everything, it's everywhere. But our research suggests that's actually a huge misconception. We're using theological words to describe technical realities, and it's messing with our heads.
It is. It's a major category error.
Right.
We are confusing processing power with divinity. And that is where the fear starts, the confusion between knowing data and knowing meaning.
Let's start with that first one then, omniscience, the idea of being all-knowing. When we look at the sources, how do they distinguish between what God knows and what, say, ChatGPT knows?
So let's look at the classical theological view first. Again, we're doing a comparative analysis here, not making a statement of faith. In most monotheistic traditions, God's knowledge is described as complete and integrated.
Integrated. What does that mean in this context? That sounds like a corporate buzzword.
Right. But here it means something profound.
Yeah.
It means there is no separation between a fact, the value of that fact, and the consequence of that fact. To know for a divine being is to understand meaning. God doesn't just know that a sparrow fell from a tree.
He knows why it matters.
He knows why it matters. He knows the grief involved. He knows the ecological place of it. The knowledge is holistic. It's woven into the fabric of reality itself.
Okay. So God knows the physics, but he also knows the poetry. He gets both.
Exactly. Now, pivot to AI. The technical view of AI, specifically large language models, is that they are vast statistical librarians. And AI's knowledge is derivative. It acts as a librarian who has memorized the location of every book and the content of every page, but has never lived a single day outside the library.
It's just predicting the next word, right? At its core, that's the mechanism. It's just looking for patterns in a massive data set.
It is probabilistic. It's all about what word is most likely to come next. And this leads to what the notes call the knowing gap. An AI can scan every book ever written about love. It can ingest millions of romance novels, psychology textbooks, poems.
And it can write a wedding vow that makes people cry. I've seen it.
It absolutely can. But it cannot feel the cost of those truths. It knows the word heartbreak is statistically associated with words like tears, pain, and loss. But it has no biological substrate to feel the crushing weight of heartbreak. It has information, but it has zero wisdom.
That is a really, really crucial distinction. It knows the facts, but not the cost. But then why does it feel so omniscient? When I use these tools, I get this eerie feeling like I'm talking to an oracle. It's unsettling.
Well, that feeling comes from the collapse of time. It's the speed.
The speed, just that.
I really think so. Think about prayer or meditation or deep study. If you seek an answer from the divine or even just from the universe, there's a delay. There's a process. You might wait a lifetime for an answer. The answer might be silence. The answer might be a slow realization over years.
Right. It's not a vending machine. You don't put in a prayer and get out a miracle.
But AI is a vending machine. It collapses the time between a question and a response to milliseconds. And it spans disciplines effortlessly. You can ask it to debug Python code, then immediately ask it to write a recipe for sourdough, then ask it to explain the geopolitical history of the Balkans. And it does it all instantly.
It's the breadth that tricks us. It feels like it knows everything because it can talk about anything.
It's the speed and the breadth together.
Oh.
It feels omniscient because it's faster than us, and it has read more than us. But it lacks that I know, self-awareness. It's a librarian that has read every book, but understands none of them.
So we're mistaking a really, really fast filing system for a cosmic mind.
Essentially. And that leads to the second attribute we tend to project onto it, omnipresence, the idea of being everywhere at once.
Which, again, feels like AI, doesn't it? It's on my phone, it's in my laptop, it's running the traffic lights, it's in the hospital. It feels inescapable.
It is ubiquitous. That's the correct technical term. Ubiquity means it's found everywhere. But it is not omnipresent in the theological sense.
Okay, split that hair for me. What's the real difference between ubiquitous and omnipresent? It feels like semantics.
It's a huge difference, actually. Omnipresence for a deity is usually described as ontological. It means God is part of the fabric of existence itself. God is in the room, whether there's a computer there or not. God is present in the silence. God is present in the vacuum of space. The presence isn't dependent on hardware.
Ah, I see where you're going. But AI needs the grid.
AI is entirely 100% infrastructure dependent. It is mediated by servers, by power lines, by fiber optic cables, by massive cooling systems. There's a pull-the-plug distinction here.
Right. If a solar flare hits or someone just cuts the right cable, the god vanishes.
Exactly. AI is ubiquitous. It's everywhere you look. But it's not omnipresent. If the power goes out, the presence evaporates. God's presence in the eyes of a believer persists regardless of any physical conditions.
So AI is fragile in a way that God isn't. It's heavy. It has a massive physical footprint. We just don't see the server farms.
It's extremely fragile. But because we live in a world where we never disconnect, where the Wi-Fi almost never goes down, it creates the illusion of inescapable presence. We feel watched, but we aren't being watched by a spirit. We are being watched by sensors connected to a database.
Okay, so we've established it's not really all-knowing, just all processing. And it's not everywhere, just everywhere there's infrastructure. But let's talk about power. Because the way AI is structured, it doesn't feel like one single entity, does it? It's not one thing.
No, not at all. And this is a fascinating shift in how we think about authority. If you look at Western history, we are so heavily influenced by monotheism. The belief in one God usually implies a unified will,
One boss, one set of rules. The buck stops there.
one coherent value system. God doesn't wake up one day wanting world peace and the next day wanting to maximize ad revenue. God doesn't have internal departments that are at war with each other over market share.
Ideally not. That would be a very stressful theology to live under.
But look at AI. AI is a distributed mind. It is spread across different models, owned by different companies, controlled by different nations, all with different goals.
So it's not one God, it's a pantheon.
That is exactly the analogy the source material uses, and I think it's brilliant. We have accidentally, without any planning, recreated the Greek pantheon. We don't have one AI, we have a pantheon of competing gods with overlapping jurisdictions.
Okay, walk me through this. Who are the gods in this new Silicon Valley pantheon?
Well, think about their domains. You have the god of vision, this facial recognition, surveillance systems, satellite imagery. Then you have the god of language, the LLMs, the chatbots, the persuaders. Then there's the god of prediction, the algorithms running the stock markets and logistics chains, the god of control, running automated systems.
And they all act differently. They have different personalities, so to speak.
They're driven by totally different and often conflicting incentives. The god of profit, let's say an ad optimization algorithm, might be actively fighting against the god of safety, which is trying to prevent harmful content. Or the god of surveillance, run by a state, is cooperating with the god of control to manage a population.
So it's like Zeus and Ares and Aphrodite bickering on Mount Olympus, but instead of lightning bolts, they're manipulating stock prices and news feeds.
Precisely. These systems sometimes cooperate and sometimes compete. There is no single moral authority governing them all. It's messy, it's conflicted, and that chaos is part of why it's so scary. With monotheism, you appeal to the one. With a pantheon, you are just caught in the crossfire of their squabbles.
And where are we in this picture? If these are the new Greek gods, what does that make humanity?
We are everything. We are the priests who tend to them, we are the sacrifices fed to them, and paradoxically, we are the flawed authors of their scripture.
The scripture? What's the scripture?
The data, the training data. Think about it. We fed them our internet, we fed them our books, our scientific papers, our arguments, our biases, our Reddit comments, our hate speech. So this pantheon is just reflecting our own chaos back at us, but with superhuman processing power and speed.
Man, that image of us being the flawed authors of the scripture is haunting. We wrote the Bible for this new God, and it turns out it's full of trolls and conspiracy theories.
It is. And that leads to why the output of this new pantheon feels so different from what we'd expect from a deity.
Yeah, let's talk about the song problem. This was a specific note in the research that I absolutely loved. The user pointed out that AI produces tangible results. It writes songs, it creates stories, it generates images. But God's actions are usually interpretive, like winning a war or a miracle happening. You have to believe it was God.
This is the difference between what the sources call instrumental power and existential power. AI is ontologically invisible. It's just math and code. You can't see the weights of the neural net. But it is phenomenologically visible.
Okay, translate that for us. What does that mean in plain English?
It means you see the result. You see the picture it drew. You hear the song it composed. You read the essay it wrote. The output is tangible, concrete.
And God is the reverse.
God is the reverse. God is invisible, in essence. You can't see him. You can't run a diagnostic on him. But his visibility comes through events and the meaning we ascribe to them.
So why doesn't God write a podcast script? I mean, seriously, why doesn't God just drop a perfect novel from the sky and end all debate?
It's a profound theological question. And the source argues that God creates creators, not artifacts. God acts through agency.
Through us. He works through us.
Right. Imagine if God wrote a song directly, a perfect, flawless song, and he just dropped it into the world.
It would probably be a banger. #1 on the charts for eternity.
It would be. But think about the cost. You would eliminate human interpretation. It would eliminate doubt. It would eliminate the struggle of meaning-making. If the perfect song exists, why would any human ever try to write one? God, in most theologies, refuses to violate human agency. It's the most sacred thing.
He steps back so we can step up, so we have room to create and fail and try again.
Exactly. But AI has no stake in your agency. It doesn't care if you struggle to write the song. It doesn't care about your personal growth or your soul. It just wants to satisfy the prompt. It satisfies the modern demand for responsiveness.
You want instant gratification. God requires patience and faith. AI requires a good prompt.
And that's why AI feels more real to a lot of people today. It's transactional, it's dialogic. You talk, it talks back immediately. God grounds the framework in which things exist, but he rarely chats with you in a text box.
There was a quote in the notes that summed this up so perfectly for me. AI writes the song, God is the reason songs hurt.
That is the key takeaway, I think. AI can simulate the structure of emotion. It knows that a minor chord progression followed by a lyric about rain usually equals sadness. But God, or whatever you consider the source of meaning in the universe, is the reason we have the capacity to feel that emotion in the first place. AI provides the content. The divine provides the context.
All right, so we have this pantheon of messy, high-speed, transactional gods that we built ourselves from our own flawed scriptures. And that brings us right back to the core of the episode's title, the fear. If God is all-powerful and AI is just a tool, why are we more scared of the tool?
It comes down to a concept that the research calls moral containment.
Moral containment. Okay, break that down for me.
Think about the gun versus meteor analogy presented in the research. I found this really helpful.
Okay, lay it on me.
A meteor is technically more powerful than a gun. A meteor could wipe out the entire planet and the human species in a second. A gun can only do limited damage. But if you were in a room and there was a gun sitting on the table, you are more immediately afraid of the gun than you are of a meteor hitting the Earth.
Of course, because the gun is here, it's proximal. And it has intent, or rather someone holding it has intent. The meteor is just physics.
Exactly. Proximity and intent. Now apply that to God and AI. God, for believers, is believed to be morally contained. Even when people fear God's wrath or judgment, it is narrativized.
It's part of a story, a bigger plan.
It's part of a framework of justice or covenant or divine love. God's programming, so to speak, is viewed by believers as immutable and perfect. You trust the character of the deity even when you don't understand the actions.
So we trust God's soul story. We believe there's a reason for the action, a moral logic to it.
Exactly. But AI represents power without a soul story. It has no intrinsic values. It has no capacity for suffering. It has no fear of consequences.
It's the psychopath definition, basically. Clinically.
In a functional sense, yes. It's high intelligence without the capacity for empathy or self-reflection. We talk about the alignment problem in tech, this grand challenge of trying to get AI to align with human values. But let's be honest. We hope the code holds is a very, very weak guarantee compared to, I trust the eternal goodness of the creator.
Right. Hoping that the safety team at a for-profit tech company did a good job is very different from trusting in divine providence. One of those feels a lot less secure.
And there's another layer to this fear, accountability. And this is the blame part.
Oh, right. Who do we blame when things go wrong? This is a big one.
Think about it. People generally do not blame God when things go wrong in the same way they blame a system. If a hurricane hits, it's a tragedy. It's a mystery. It's God's will. It is accepted as part of the tragic, random human condition.
But if an AI denies your loan application because of your zip code, which is a proxy for race,
then you are furious because you know that a human optimized the wrong metric. You know someone cut corners. You know it was a decision made for efficiency, not justice. AI can be blamed. And, more importantly, its creators can be blamed.
and because it can be blamed, we fear it more. That seems counterintuitive.
Yes, because when it fails, it means a human failed. It reflects our own fallibility back at us. It creates a specific kind of dread. The dread of human error amplified to an infinite scale.
It's the equation of terror from the notes.
Human flaws multiplied by infinite scale, multiplied by no capacity for suffering. That equals catastrophe.
It's scary because we know it's us. It's our biases, our greed, our laziness, just running at 1,000,000,000 miles an hour with no off switch.
It's the fear of looking in the mirror and seeing a monster that you can't turn off, and knowing that the monster doesn't care if it hurts you because it can't feel anything at all.
Which segues perfectly into the scale of this thing. Because God, or religion, used to be local. I mean, religion started in small communities, but AI is global from day one.
This is the globalization problem. The research makes a really fascinating point here. Historically, God scales poorly.
What do you mean by that? That sounds kind of controversial.
Well, think about how religious frameworks evolved. They evolved in small, high-trust communities. You had a shared moral consensus. Everyone in the village or the tribe agreed on what was sacred. But in a globalized world with billions of people and the internet, God becomes an option.
Right. You go online and see 5,000 different beliefs. So God becomes a preference. It's like, I'm into this faith, the same way someone might say, I'm into this type of music.
Exactly. It becomes privatized. It's a personal choice. But AI scales instantly. And crucially, it is not optional.
You cannot opt out. There's no unsubscribe from the algorithm button.
You cannot opt out. You don't believe in algorithms. You encounter them.
Mhm.
You encounter them when you apply for a job and a bot scans your resume.
Yeah.
You encounter them when you drive through a smart city. You encounter them in the banking system, the legal system.
So God is a choice, but AI is infrastructure. That's a powerful way to put it.
Yes. And this leads to a terrifying thought experiment that the sources propose. Imagine if God were as tangible and operational as AI.
Okay, so imagine God is physically here, objectively real, acting consistently and visibly for everyone to see. No more mystery.
What would the reaction be? Would people fall to their knees in worship?
Honestly, knowing people, probably not. We'd probably argue with him. We'd complain about his decisions.
We would absolutely argue with him.
Yeah.
We would protest. We would reject his values.
Yeah.
If God was making decisions about who gets resources and who doesn't, openly and visibly, he would be treated like a politician or a CEO. There'd be congressional hearings.
That is wild to think about. We think we want proof of God, but if we had it, we'd treat him like a tyrant.
Because meaning without choice feels like coercion. AI forces humanity into a collective responsibility without collective consent. We never voted for AI to run the labor market. It just happened. It was deployed.
And that brings up the dread again. It's not just that AI is scary. It's that we feel small and powerless in the face of it.
Nothing is small enough to feel held anymore. In the past, your local god or your community held your local fear. Now the systems are global, the threats are global, but our emotional capacity is still local. God is no longer the primary container for existential fear because God has been pushed to the realm of personal belief. AI has taken over the realm of shared reality.
So we're naked in the storm.
Essentially. And the storm is made of math, and it's a storm we created.
Let's go deeper into this idea of the perfect God versus the imperfect machine, because I think there is something really deep here about why we need God to be unprovable. It feels central to all of this.
It really is. It's the incompatibility of perfection and reality.
Okay, so the starting point is God is perfect. That's the definition in most cases.
But why does God remain perfect in our minds? The source argues it's because he is never placed inside a falsifiable system. God creates frameworks, the rules of the universe, the moral laws. He doesn't create products.
He doesn't ship software updates that need bug fixes.
Exactly. AI, on the other hand, must perform.
Yeah.
It is inside the system. It is a product. Therefore, it is audited. It is measured. And anything that is measured will eventually be found to be imperfect.
So when God's actions don't make sense, like a tragedy happens to a good person, we call it mystery.
Mystery. God moves in mysterious ways. That phrase is a brilliant psychological mechanism to preserve perfection in the face of confusing reality. It keeps the cognitive dissonance from breaking us.
But when AI messes up, it's a bug. There's no mystery. There's a GitHub ticket.
It's a bug, or a bias in the training data,
Yeah.
or a flawed objective function. Audits destroy perfection. Mystery preserves it.
So if God showed his work, like if he gave us a spreadsheet, here's the spreadsheet of why I let this bad thing happen, he wouldn't be God anymore.
He would become a utilitarian optimizer.
Yeah.
He would be a technocrat. Imagine if God said, I allowed this war because, in my model, it optimized global GDP by 3% in the long run and stimulated technological growth that saved more lives later.
That is horrifying. It's monstrous.
It is repulsively anti-human. Every moral trade-off would be exposed. And this brings us to the most critical point of the entire deep dive, I think. The collapse of agency.
Explain that. What does that mean?
If God provably determined outcomes, if we knew for a fact that God decided the winner of every war, every illness, every lottery ticket, human free will would collapse into nothing, we would become spectators in our own lives.
Why bother fighting if the outcome is already hard-coded? Why bother striving to be a good person?
Exactly. Obedience only matters if disobedience is possible. If God is just a physics engine determining the future with perfect accuracy, we aren't moral agents anymore. We're just cogs in a divine machine.
So we need God to be unprovable. It's a requirement for our own humanity.
We psychologically require God to be unprovable to remain human. We need the deniability of God to maintain our own agency. We need to be able to wonder if he's there so that our choices feel like our choices and not just lines in a script.
That is, man, that turns the whole atheist versus believer debate on its head. It's not about evidence. It's about the psychological necessity of uncertainty.
Uncertainty is the space where freedom lives. AI is threatening because it systematically seeks to remove uncertainty. It predicts, it profiles, it optimizes, it crowds out the space for human agency.
It tells you what you want before you know you want it. It finishes your sentences.
And there's this point about sin versus error. Religion has this powerful concept of sin. If you disagree with God, you're sinning. You are morally wrong.
Right, you're the one who's flawed, not the system.
And that works because God is unfalsifiable. You can't prove God wrong,
Yeah.
so the system can maintain its coherence by saying you are wrong.
But you can't do that with AI. You can prove it wrong all day long.
No, AI cannot label dissent as sin.
Oh.
If I disagree with ChatGPT about a historical fact, I'm not a sinner. I'm just pointing out a hallucination, a bug.
Hey, you got that date wrong. That's not a moral failing on my part.
It's epistemic. It's factual. AI is demonstrably fallible. So it can never claim moral authority over us in the way your religion can. And yet, because it has so much power over us, that creates this terrifying dissonance. We're being ruled by something we know is dumber than we are in terms of wisdom, but smarter than we are in terms of data processing.
It's like being ruled by a calculator that thinks it's a king.
A calculator that determines your credit score, your job prospects, and maybe eventually your medical treatment. That's the fear.
So let's try to pull all these threads together. This has been a massive tour through theology and technology.
Right.
We have the illusion of omniscience, we have the pantheon of power, we have the lack of moral containment, and we have this deep clash between perfection and reality. What does this actually mean for you, the listener, right now?
I think the final synthesis is this. God survives as a concept because he is not operational. He is an ideal, a limit concept. He's the ultimate why.
And AI.
AI is feared because it is operational. It is decisive. It is unavoidable. It is the how running on autopilot without a why.
And the danger isn't that AI will become God. That's the sci-fi trope.
No, that's a distraction. The real danger is that we will treat it as if it were a moral authority.
That's the moral outsourcing warning from the research.
Yes. If an AI system develops a trusted moral narrative, if it starts giving us good advice, safe advice, efficient advice, we risk just asking, what does the system recommend? Instead of wrestling with the question, what is right?
We stop doing the hard work. We stop wrestling with the dilemma and just look at the output. We outsource our conscience to a machine.
And that, I think, is the death of the human spirit. It's the end of moral agency.
So what's the closing thought? Where do we leave people with this heavy, heavy topic?
The arrival of AI doesn't disprove God. If anything, it forces us to grow up. It forces us to realize that humans can live with an unprovable God, or we can live with a fallible system. But we cannot survive a proven perfect authority that decides outcomes for us.
We can't handle the truth if the truth is just an algorithm's output.
The burden of meaning is being pushed back onto us, harder than ever before. For a long time, the mantra was, trust the higher power. In the age of AI, the mantra is shifting to own the consequences.
We have to write the songs, and we have to be willing to feel the hurt. We can't let the machine do the living for us.
Exactly. The responsibility is ours.
Wow. Okay. That is a lot to chew on. I'm going to be looking at my laptop very differently for the rest of the day.
Just remember, it's a mirror. If you don't like what you see, change the reflection. Don't just polish the mirror.
I love that. Thank you so much for this deep dive. And to everyone listening, take a moment. Think about where you're placing your trust and where you're placing your fear.
And ask yourself, are you looking for answers or are you looking for meaning? Because they aren't always found in the same place.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.